and Alvin Kamara and every other name you hear about in the coming days. Now, sometimes it's real. In the case of Robert Quinn, obviously it was real.
And a good football Friday, undefeated football Friday, that is, here on Birds 365 as the Eagles get back to work on the field. The general manager's been busy off the field, and we're here to talk about it all with you. Jody McDonald, along with my partner, John McMullen, who's hanging with me for an hour before he's got to get over and see if there's anything else going down in Eagle Land today before they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. Howie Roseman keeping you busy with not only a trade, Johnny Mac, but speculation on several more.
Yeah, I mean, he always keeps us busy. That's one of the things. I wish the entire NFL ecosystem would get together and just stipulate that Howie's calling about everybody. So you don't have all these, and the Eagles, I'd like to say, thought when you hear the rumors, I always joke, insert name, um, the Bears are interested, the Bucks are interested, the Rams are interested, and the Eagles.
And the
Because Howie calls about everybody, and it has more to do with, and Christian McCaffrey's a better example of this. It has more to do with understanding what the market is so he can do what he wants to do. So he wants to keep his sort of hand on the pulse of everybody else so he can better understand what he has to do to get what he wants to get done. But he's not trying to get Christian McCaffrey and Odell Beckham, and he's not a trade, obviously, but a free agent. And Alvin Kamara and every other name you hear about in the coming days. Now, sometimes it's real. In the case of Robert Quinn, obviously it was real. Um, so you got to be careful but with those things. But I wish everybody would at least get to that point and understand he's calling about everybody. So that doesn't necessarily mean there's significant interest or not. It's how he does his job. And by
Right.
the way, every GM should watch how he. And there are some. George Payton in Denver's the same way. Got to know him a little bit. He's the same way. He calls about everybody. It doesn't matter. So there are a few. But more, everybody should do that, to be honest.
And we said this here on the show yesterday when the Quinn deal became official. And I do want to ask you about him meeting the media yesterday, and thought he handled himself really well with what his role and what part he's got to play with the Eagles for the rest of 2022. My only reservation on the deal was that Howie's only got so many chips to play. It doesn't cost you anything to make a phone call. Doesn't cost you anything to have a conversation, but it did cost them a fourth round pick to get Quinn. And on its face, that's not a high price to pay, but there is a fine line between paying and using the chips that you have and or underpay and be able to come up with a steal. The Eagles have only so many draft picks, and if they're really getting a guy for a seventh round pick, how much is he really upgrading your team? Eagles only have so many picks they can deal. Howie can only acquire so many players and upgrades.
It's a valuable chip because those mid-round picks are basically what players go for. So now you don't have a bunch of them for this trade and other trades, but yeah, I mean, he made it. It's interesting because he seems, and look, the positional value is understandable because around the NFL, edge rusher is more important than safety. I would have gone for a backup safety over. But I can make do with Patrick Johnson. I thought he was playing pretty well.
Right.
I do. In limited, we're talking 10, 15 reps. Now, you can always say, well, what if so and so gets hurt? But I mean, I can't play that game. Yeah, all right. I'd love to have a starting caliber player behind everybody. It's not realistic. So you kind of have to weigh these things, and it's clear in his mind it was more valuable to get an edge rusher than anything else. maybe the disappointing part for Jody McDonald. I don't want to talk for you, but this means they had significant plans for Derek Barnett before he got injured. I don't.
Yeah, and the loss of Derek Barnett has so crushed them.
I
know. Oh no,
know.
wait, they're 6-0.
I'm
Oh
agreeing
no,
with
wait,
you.
they're getting more to the quarterback than they ever did last year. The evidence truly points to that massive loss of Derek Barnett. Please.
Jody, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying from their perspective, that's what it tells me. I don't see it. I don't see the need. Now, Teron Jackson.
Let me add to your point, John. From the what if somebody gets hurt column. Yeah. What if Josh Sweat gets hurt? Oh, yeah, you're going to be real glad you got Robert Quinn.
Yeah.
What if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson goes down? Now you're screwed. Now you really are in a deficit position. Yeah. So you can play the what if the guy gets hurt at any position you have on the team. And I'm more worried about who you're going to have to plug in as a backup safety than a backup defensive lineman.
So am I. And by the way,
trade.
it's interesting because we got to see it pre-bye against Dallas, 16 reps, right? That's basically what Patrick Johnson plays. At most, he got, when they blew out, I forget the game, he got like 28, so he got significantly more. But we've seen him for 15, 16 snaps, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not great, but it's not terrible. We saw Kayvon Wallace for 16 snaps. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. So, understanding value of the position, edge rusher is more important. I don't. And remember, and I brought up Teron Jackson there real quick. And maybe he'll be back on the practice squad. It won't mean anything, but from that standpoint, it's like you also had him. And although, people say he's a disappointment, he'd still be here if you don't. So they had much more depth on the defensive line than they have in the defense. And I'll add cornerback to that mix because while the Eagles may talk about Zach McPherson as he's some kind of set standard, he hasn't proven anything in limited playing time. And by the way, they talked up Kerry Vincent Jr. and Tate Gowan and Mac McCain as well in the offseason. That was the foursome. Yeah. The other three aren't even here. Well, Mac's here on the practice squad, but not on the 53-man, and two of them aren't even here. So, I don't. I think it's a good trade from a valuation standpoint. Now we know they already waived the next 2 years of Robert Quinn's contract. They're agreed. It's done. So this is the classic. I always say football isn't like baseball. Well, in this case, it is. This is the classic rent-a-player. I mean, he's here for 11 games and hopefully 3 in the playoffs, and that's it. And nice knowing you.
Or they could re-sign him, but they're going to do so with a new contract.
Oh yeah,
at a much smaller number than the ones he's scheduled to make if his contract went all the way to the end.
Yeah, and by all accounts, I mean, this is a really good guy. Got to meet him yesterday. Really good teammate. You could see Chicago, and they were really upset. A bunch of his teammates, former team captain. So I'm not concerned about the chemistry part or the mercenary part or not caring part. He seems, from all accounts, he seems like a really good person, a really good teammate. But yeah, I mean, I think they had bigger needs. You
and I will agree on that one. Procedural question. Teron Jackson, got to go through waivers. How long is the waiver period in the NFL? Not that I'm going, oh my God, they got to get Teron Jackson back, but they got time invested in him. He knows the scheme. I'd rather have him on the practice squad than I go down the list of all the practice squad players. I check off almost every single name that's on the Eagles practice squad right now that I would keep Teron Jackson ahead of if they get the chance to get him back. What's the time frame on
that? 24 hours. That's it.
So they should know by today if they can bring him back.
Yeah, they officially signed Quinn yesterday after he failed his physical. So yeah, somebody can claim him today, and if not, I expect him back on the practice squad. It'll be interesting. I think there's a good chance he'll get claimed for the reason that, when you're 6-0, people pay attention and they say they might not. Let's take a flyer on this kid. He's young. He's shown some upside. So I think there's a chance they lose him. If he gets through waivers, though, he'll certainly be back on the practice squad, and everything will be copacetic. But it's a little bit of a gamble.
Let me run this one by you. And this is pure speculation, not inside information on my part. I think the Eagles could lose him, but I think it might be to another team's practice squad. If he clears waivers, certainly the Eagles are going to call it. They've got a relationship with the agent, but they cut him. And they can say all the nice things that they want after the fact, but you cut me. And if there's another team out there with less of a defensive line in front of him where he actually could get elevated and back onto the roster, because if he's on Eagles practice squad, the way the roster is put together right now, he's not getting elevated unless somebody gets hurt. Maybe there's another team where you say, yeah, they'll sign him for the practice squad now, but they make his agent and him believe that, but we're going to activate you at some time. And he sees a quicker way to playing time in the National Football League. Has that got a chance of shaking out?
It's always, you probably just gave him some good agent advice. Go somewhere where you have a better opportunity. The Eagles tend to be ahead of this stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if Howie had that conversation with them. And one of the reasons we always say when they pick somebody up, when they, the first thing we always talk about amongst ourselves, all the beat reporters, is, all right, he's going to get cut to make room for this guy.
Sure.
And Teron was one of the names, lesser on my list. I didn't think they'd cut him. But, it might come down to, how he might have had that discussion. Look, we got a chance to get Robert Quinn. We're going to bring you back. And I know Teron likes it here. He likes the team. He fits in. I wouldn't be surprised if they already had that conversation. If I were his agent, though, I would do what you just said. I would say, look, this team is loaded up front. I mean, you don't even have a chance to get elevated, because when you get elevated, you get that 53-man game check, even though you're not on the 53. So it's more money than a practice squad contract. And he's not going to get elevated here, barring massive injuries, of course. So I think that's good advice. But I think if he doesn't get claimed, I think he's going to be back with the Eagles. They get ahead of that stuff.
There may or may not be a team that fits the exact description I said, but here's one thing I tell you for sure.
The Bears do. The Bears should claim him on waivers and get an extra player for the trade. Exactly. They have a disastrous defensive line. Their defensive line is so bad that everybody was double teaming Robert Quinn. That's how bad they were. They should claim him on waivers.
That's a distinct possibility. And if they don't, if they call him and say, hey, we might not be able to get you this week, but, man, we got plans for you. I believe it. I buy it. And here's one thing. All of this is speculation. Here's one thing I can say for sure. Nobody ever gets a better second contract because, damn, they killed on the practice squad. No. You actually have to get into games. You have to be able to produce. You have to be able to put quality film work together for your agent to be able to show to a general manager if he wants to get that second contract. Yeah. So that will, as much as he may like Gannon and his coaches and his teammates in Philadelphia, the thing that's got to be priority number one is, where am I going to be able to play?
And you just spurred my memory, Jody. If you recall, the Eagles signed Andrew Sendejo as a free agent a couple years ago, big favorite of the Philly fans. And, back then they were playing the compensatory pick game. And if Sendejo made it to 10 games, they were going to lose a comp pick that they were going to get otherwise. So he, the coaching staff really liked him, but they weren't a great team at the time. And Howie said, you know what, we need that pick. And they cut him right after that ninth game or whatever it was. I forget the exact number, but and Minnesota, he was a longtime starter in Minnesota, was an aging player at the time, brought him back. And They had to waive somebody
Who'd they
to bring
waive?
him back. And they waived Marcus Epps, who was a 6th-round pick that year.
Yep.
And the Eagles claimed him on waivers. So it wasn't a trade, but it ended up being sort of a trade. And obviously, Marcus Epps is a starter now in Philadelphia. Yeah, now that you bring it up, if I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm claiming Teron Jackson because I know they have nothing on the defensive line.
They've got an opening there for sure. All right. One last thing. We've got our buddy Les Bowen joining us in a couple of minutes. Long-time Eagle beat reporter. Do you see Gannon today? I know you get a chance to talk to the head coach and you got your off-your-record session on Fridays. But are the coordinators made available to you guys either in the locker room or brought to a podium?
No. I might see him on the practice field. But, sometimes he comes by to say hello, but that's it.
If you get a chance to see him on the practice field and JG, come here a sec, and you can get a moment by yourself and you can whisper in his ear, do this favor for me. Say, this is my partner, Jody McDonald, talking, not me. You don't have to. If you want to sign on with me, feel free. But if you don't, you can just lay it all in my lap. Here's one thing I definitely want to see out of the Philadelphia Eagles on defense this week. Nakobe Dean has to play.
Really?
You and I have been talking about it for weeks. White and Edwards are playing well enough that they're just keeping him nailed to the bench. That it's not necessarily Nakobe Dean's fault that he's not playing. The guys in front of him have just been better and don't deserve to come off the field. They're 6-0. Steelers aren't real good. We'll kind of jump ahead a couple steps here. I think this game is going to play a lot like the Viking game, that the Steelers are going to do next to nothing on offense. So the Eagles will have a comfortable lead. We know they score a ton of points in the second half. So going into the second half, they'll have a lead. They won't be pressurized, can't give up a touchdown, fall behind. I think Nakobe Dean is like a backup outfielder or infielder on a baseball team. Guy who needs to play like once every 10 days to 2 weeks just to keep him sharp, that they give him a start. Well, where are we starting him today? We hadn't played in 2 weeks. All right, it's one game. Get him in there, get him his 4 at-bats just to keep him in the mode. That's what I think they need to do with Nakobe Dean this week. He hasn't played any defensive snaps. Now he's staying engaged with the team because he's playing special teams. I think he might have played more special team snaps than almost anybody else because I think he plays on both coverage and the punt team as well. Yeah, just in case. We keep talking about what happens if the injury hits. Well, if either White or Edwards go down, you're going to have to plug Nakobe Dean in. And guess what? He hasn't played a snap in a month. So I'd give him just a little taste this week. You know that Nakobe Dean has played every defensive snap for every defensive team he's ever played for since he was Pee-wees through the 14-year-old, through high school, through college. He's one of the best defensive players on the field everywhere he's ever played. Now, all of a sudden, he never gets in. Oh, I'd put him in this week for a couple of snaps if I were guessing.
Yeah, I think it has to do with what you said. I mean, there's a chance if they're blowing out if they're winning, if they're in the lead. I brought up Patrick Johnson. I just looked at it when you were talking. It was the Washington game. So it makes sense. He played 28 reps in that game, and because they had a big lead, they had a comfortable lead in the second half. They were never concerned. If that's the case in Pittsburgh, and by the way, there's a very good chance it's going to be the case against Pittsburgh because I think they're going to beat this team pretty handily. Then you have an opportunity. But if it's a close game, yeah, I mean, he's not getting out there. The other two guys are the starters, and deservedly so, and they have that luxury right now, and it is a luxury. But yeah, if it's a blowout game, I agree with you. Get them some reps. I think more NFL teams
they get up by 10 points. I think he needs to get a couple of that. And I'm not talking about regular rotation close to as much as White or either Edwards. That's not Edwards' name. Just to give him the feel of being in his position in an NFL game, which he hasn't had since preseason.
Yeah, I mean, it'll come. I realize the frustration with people because, Nakobe came in with such hype, but, I think he's going to be a starter next year. I think the plan's already in place. Um, I think they're going to sign TJ to an extension. They're going to say thanks for the really good play, Kaiser White, and unfortunately, they have to do some. They have a lot. We talked about it. They have a lot of 1-year contracts. They have a lot of decisions to make. They have a lot of shifting to do come next season because they know what's coming with Jalen Hurts. Draft picks are going to become more important once that extension is worked out. And Nakobe's a big part of that. But this year, those are the guys that are going to play.
Understood. And I'm talking about this year, just in case. The best teams, the teams that end up making the playoffs, advancing the playoffs, maybe make a Super Bowl run, have backup plans, have plan Bs. Right now, they don't have a plan B at linebacker. They haven't needed a plan B at linebacker, but there are some things you can't control, Johnny Mac. You and I say it all the time.
Well, yeah,
you can't handicap injuries.
Yeah, no, you can't. And, he's it's one of those things. Yeah, I don't think many NFL teams do. There are certain positions we all know that are rotational positions, defensive line, and there are certain players that are not. You're always looking for 3-down linebackers. And the Eagles believe they have 2 of them, and they believe Nakobe Dean will become that type of player down the road. But if the game's competitive, the other 2 guys aren't leaving the field unless they have to leave the field. And the only reason they'd have to leave the field is through injury. And maybe that helps. But, 4 reps. Yeah, Nakobe Dean has played 4 snaps. And hopefully there's some blowout games and you get an opportunity to do it a little bit more in the second half. But I don't think there's anything to worry about. But I know everybody's hand wringing and, you had all these rumors about the Eagles trading Nakobe Dean. I don't know if you saw those. The, idiot people throw out goofy rumors, and they don't have any issue with Nakobe Dean. It's just that the other 2 guys are better and more prepared to play today.
All right, quickie before we get our first break, and hopefully we get Les Bowen up to join us. What do you make of these Alvin Kamara rumors? That the Howie is certainly called and gauged whether the Saints would go there. Here's my thought on it, and the reason why it concerns me a little bit that they made the move that they made for Quinn. Again, not a bad deal. Don't want the stream crushing me. What are you talking about? It's a great deal. I get it. It's a good deal, but the Eagles only have so many draft picks that they can give up to potentially acquire something. If I'm Mickey Loomis and I'm New Orleans,
I'm staying away from Howie.
I'm A, staying away from Howie, and B, if I'm trading Alvin Kamara, it's not for a 2024 draft pick because Mickey might not be around long enough to make that draft pick in 2024. No. You're paying me right now. You give me back my first-round draft pick, I give you Alvin Kamara. That's the only way that deal gets done. So that's one less bullet that Howie has to pull for a guy like Alvin Kamara. I don't think they've got the wherewithal to get a guy.
Yeah, like I don't. First of all, I've talked about this a lot. I think there's this mentality, and I understand it, that the conventional way to think is Alvin Kamara is a really good player. He's really good coming out of the backfield as a receiver. I don't think the Eagles need that. They're different. That's not how Jalen Hurts plays. He doesn't need a safety net coming out of the backfield. In fact, I think it hinders him, which I've talked before. I don't think he likes dumping the football off to the back. I think it's counterintuitive, but it doesn't make sense for this team at this stage. They build around the quarterback. I said it's not a run-first offense. It's not a pass-first offense. It's a Jalen Hurts first offense. And I don't need Alvin Kamara mucking up the works. I said the same thing about Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey's a phenomenal player when healthy. He's not going to throw the ball to the running backs. He doesn't need to throw the ball to the running backs. Occasionally, the whole big plan in the offseason, let's get Kenny Gainwell involved. Kenny Gainwell is a great receiver. He is a great receiver for a running back.
He might be. We don't know that.
Well, I mean, natural receiver. He does have good hands. He does have a lot of experience at the college level doing it. He's very comfortable doing it. But they don't use him because it's not because he can't catch the ball. It's because they don't need it. First of all, if your 1A target is open, which AJ Brown's always open, as the sign on his locker says, and if he's not open, Devontae is, and if Devontae's not open, Dallas Goedert is. So first of all, your top 3 receivers, somebody's always open, and that's it. That's a good team. What are you going to? Oh, we got to dump it down to the back 60 times. I don't think they need it. Now here's where I think, and I've said this pretty consistently, I think Nick Sirianni likes Miles Sanders more than Howie Roseman. I think Howie doesn't love Miles Sanders, which is ironic because when he was a rookie, he loved him. But I think over the years, he's like, we can do better. We can do better. We can do better. I think all they need is a complimentary running back. And by running back, I mean somebody who runs the football. I think they need a better complimentary runner. I don't think they need a pass catcher. Now, if you bring Alvin Kamara in, he's better than Miles Sanders. Running the football, catching the football, he's a better player. So you upgrade your team. But how he beats Mickey Loomis like a drum, I don't know if he wants to go down that route. I was talking about it all the offseason. Other people are on there going, oh, no, Mickey knows what he's doing. No, he doesn't. Howie beat him like a drum. And he doesn't want to do it again. Did he call? Oh, yeah. He's trying to dunk on Mickey Loomis again. He calls about everybody. We just talked about that at the start of the show.
For those who thought that Mickey didn't get his pocket picked, what are the Saints? What's their record right now? And sooner or later, you got to start playing games. We have all the speculation during the offseason, and then they start playing games, and the Saints have a massively losing record at this stage. The only reason why they're still in it, because, man, it's that division. You watch the Bucks last night? They're just a red hot mess.
We might, and they lost Shaq Barrett now to a torn Achilles, most likely. I think we're about at the stage where we can put the Bucks to rest.
Yeah, but see, you can't, John, because somebody's got to win that
division.
Well,
somebody's got to win the division.
As a Super Bowl contender, I'm with you. You can put the Bucks right. Sorry, Tommy B, you're not going out as crowned another championship. The what's he got? 6? The number's
7.
ending at 6. You're not adding a 7 championship.
7. He's got 7. He's got 7, right?
7. The last one was 7.
I believe so.
Oh,
but boy, all
and you're
runs together.
Not going to get the Ocho. The Ocho would be Chris Jericho, not Tom Brady. Sorry, pal, not happening. But they could still make the playoffs because that division's that bad. You just want to hand it to Atlanta, Carolina, or New Orleans? Somebody's got to win that division.
Now, yes, and by I meant as a Super Bowl contender. I meant, hey, look, anytime Tom Brady shows up, you're going to have a little. Your hands are going to get a little sweaty, a little nervous anytime he shows up. But boy, I can't even be concerned about the Bucs at this point. If I'm a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and I think that's what the Eagles are. To be honest, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Certainly more so than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We all remember that playoff game from last year. Not good. 9 months.
Yeah,
later.
And by the way, I double checked. It is 7, so he does have 7.
This Tampa was the 7th. He got 6 in New England, 1 more in Tampa. The Ocho, Chris Jericho, lives. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We should have Les Bowen joining us, longtime Eagles beat guy. J-Mac's going to kick it over to the NovaCare Complex, get some Eagles info for hour number 2. The big guy, Barrett Brooks, is going to join me, and we'll also have Andrew Filipponi from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh in hour number 2. But next, you get McDonald, McMullen, and Les Bowen here on Birds 365.